Hey there, friends. Welcome to my new project called Tikkunei Tanya. I don't even know how I can say those words seriously, Tikkunei Tanya, but this is the next phase of my journey. This is the next phase of the Torah of Geula. This is the next phase of awakening everybody to the presence of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu in all things, of getting that Daas. Chabad Hasidus was a big quantum leap forward in the dissemination, getting us closer and closer to the opening of the eyes, the full remembrance, experientially in the nervous system, of the reality that everything is the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. It was the next quantum leap, and now it's time for us to stand where Chabad Hasidus got us to, and all of the other streams of Torah that got us standing on the verge of the full actualization of the Geula, of the redemption of consciousness from nightmare sleep state. Ooh, my ears ringing like crazy. Into Geula, the remembrance, the full-bodied remembrance of what we truly are, the work of all of our Gilgulam, all of our lifetimes, NBD, no big deal. It's time to take that next step. And I am deeply, deeply connected to the Tanya, to the Alter Rebbe, through some really intense past life stuff, as well as this life. This is my book that I wrote on the Tanya Companion. Needs a big tikkun. It is all factually accurate. It was written through the lens of the lower levels, the lens of Yetzirah consciousness. We're going to talk in this series from a really, really meta level. God willing, starting to step into Torah Bria for sure, and stepping into Torah of Atzilus. What the Alter Rebbe encoded in the Tanya is massive. The tools that were encoded in the Tanya for this point in history, the consciousness, the bombs that the Alter Rebbe just smuggled right in there, that we then read through our hypnotic Erev Rav religious programming. There's a lot that's going to open up through this journey, because we're here for God, we're here for truth, we're here for the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, we're here for actual MS. The Alter Rebbe demands MS, as we know, truth, and nothing but the truth. And that can feel radical sometimes, that can look radical sometimes, and there's no more needing to explain or justify or do mental acrobatics. There's reality. There's just reality. And there is the Ein Sof Baruch Hu manifesting as reality. And we're not doing theory. We're not doing any of that stuff. We are going straight to the highest points as they manifest right down here. So I do not feel adequately prepared to jump into the Tanya fully right now today. There are two things that I'd like to point out for this little first episode. So we're just gonna, and this project being called Tikkunei Tanya. So a tikkun, we're used to using it in terms of repair, but it also means a key and an upgrade. So keep that in mind as we do Tikkunei Tanya, the tikkun on the Tanya, the expansions, the keys, the upgrades that were always encoded into the Tanya, and it's time to go there. So there are two things, and we're not going through every word and every letter. This will be Tikkunei Tanya round 1. We are going to be unpacking this, unfolding this together. So it's just going to be points from, each different chapter. Essentially, we're not going word through word. I do want to point out that the highest state of consciousness that the Alter Rebbe brings is being in a state of Yira, of Yira. All of our work, all of the paths of Kabbalah and Hasidus and the true paths of Torah, right? And I'm not talking about religion, because I think, unfortunately, religion is the biggest stira, is the biggest block to getting an actual das in Hashem, an actual experiential knowledge of God, and actually coming into a state of yira, of awe in your nervous system. Being in a state of yira ilah is my nervous system actually processes everything as God. And that doesn't mean that I'm that doesn't mean that everything is okay, that I let everything just be as it is. It's a deep, multidimensional, intuitive state that one gets to. But the state of yira ilah, of your nervous system processing reality, your physical nervous system processing reality, that everything is God, that's the ultimate state. And that's what the Tanya talks about, tons and tons and tons and tons of being in the state of yira. We'll talk more about that. But I just wanted to point that out, that here in the Hakdama, in the Alter Rebbe's preface, essentially, to the Tanya, where he refers to, I don't know how clearly you could see that, but you can look yourself in the Hakdama, that there are multiple instances that the Rebbe the Alter Rebbe refers to the Sefarim, the books that he was drawing from as he compiled the Tanya, as he channeled the Tanya. He refers to them as Sifrei Yira, specifically the Sifrei Yira of the Arizal, he refers to, and in other places he speaks about the Sifrei Yira, these books of awe, these books of being in this state of awe, of our nervous systems translating reality correctly, finally, right? And the other thing that I want to point out that you may have heard me say multiple times, let me find where this is the fact that the Alter Rebbe writes right in the introduction to the Tanya that, and this is something we have to pay attention to because we're trying to get to objective reality here, right? And we've all been psyoped that the practice of religion and the halacha l'maisa is somehow objective reality. It's not, because there's 12 trillion different opinions for each thing. But here we're talking, and there's more nuance to it that we're going to track through the text. My finger's right on it. You can zoom in if you want. You can find it yourself. The Alter Rebbe just puts plain as day right there in the introduction that even halacha, which is supposed to be objective, right? It's supposed to be objective. We all know that it's not, in practice and in theory. That a Rav who's poskening halacha decides halacha based on their own emotional makeup, on their own midos, right? That's the level of Yetzirah. That's the level of Zeranpin. That's the level of the Ruach. It's the level of the emotions, okay? It's not objective. So how do we translate this? Yes, okay, we claim, right? And again, the tradition says we're claiming that it's this whole deep intellectual system of how we come to one halacha or another. But again, practically, as we know, there's 50 trillion different opinions, even within Chabad, even within modern Orthodoxy, even within the same groups. You ask one Rav one thing, it's completely allowed, completely holy, completely mutter, completely permissible. You ask another Rav the same question, it is asur legamri, it is completely forbidden. You're going to get fucking karas, your soul's going to get cut off if you do this, right? It all depends on how the person feels, the makeup of their midos. Torah is supposed to bring us to objective reality. God is objective reality, okay? That's what we're trying to get to here. Objective, how do I objectively relate to God here in reality? Yes, I'm a subjective being. I'm an individualized being. The religion is built off of halacha l'maisa, okay? It's not objective reality. It's not God's reality. And you can bring whatever justifications you want. I won't be responding to comments. I won't be debating anybody who wants to bring comments or debates here about this, that, or the other thing. We will be discussing the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, right? The fact that the Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya and also a Shulchan Aruch, right? But we're going to a meta level. We're going to levels of not being afraid to go even higher than Chabad's narrative and tradition about itself, than the Torah, than the Jewish narrative and tradition about itself. We're stepping out of that. We're stepping out of the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra. We're stepping out of the judgment of things of good and bad, this, that, and the other thing. We're recalibrating our definitions to step out of the subjective darkness of the exile, of the gullus, which is when we're separated from truth and living complete ego distortions, no matter how frum and religious and holy we might think they are, and stepping back into objective reality. And there is an objective reality, and it's a lot more beautiful than the kind of psychotic narratives that we have all inhabited. And we're gonna have to deconstruct a lot of things that a lot of our egos dressed up as holiness and our souls have held dear. And on the other side of that is actual life. And for anybody who has any real spiritual sensitivity is going to feel relieved to hear a lot of the unpacking of the terms and what the terms are really saying. And anyone who's followed me for a while, you know that I'm really here to restore the language, to restore the actual das of what these words mean, as opposed to their subjective, well, it's the kind of whatever I feel like, and then I can back it up with some verse in Torah, right? This is why there's so much mental illness and emotional illness and people feel fucking insane. This is the doubled and redoubled darkness right before Mashiach fully comes on the scene, where the Torah world is absolute darkness and chaos and horror, and the secular world is absolute darkness, chaos, and horror. And turns out it's all the same world of darkness, chaos, and horror, right? It was a false divide the whole time. But we're going to be taking the next steps into Geula, Torah Bria, Torah Vatzilos, as we go. So I'm looking forward to everybody joining me on this Tikkunei Tanya journey, and let's do it.